Hi, I'm Daniel Kosoy, and this is United24 Media. Moscow was hit with 34 drones on November 10th in the biggest strike on the Russian capital to date. The Russian Federal Air Transport Agency said the airports of Domodedovo, Sheremetyevo, and Zhukovsky diverted at least 36 flights. The city governor stated on Telegram that at least 17 UAVs were shot down over the suburbs, with witnesses posting dozens of videos of the flybys. Meanwhile, the Russian MOD reported shooting down at least 70 drones across the whole territory. A record number of aerial threats was recorded across Ukraine over the weekend. On November 10th, up to 145 threats entered Ukrainian aerospace, with the anti-air defense shooting down at least 62 targets. On November 11th, air raid alerts sent thousands of Kyiv residents into shelters, as multiple cities across the nation were bombed. Among those who were forced to spend a morning in the shelter was the High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell. He recognized that this is the daily reality for Ukrainian people since Russia's full-scale invasion. Meanwhile, Zaporizhia's downtown was hit with 3 unguided aerial bombs, killing 1 civilian and wounding at least 22. Among the injured were 5 children currently being treated in hospital. Rescue operations are ongoing.
We were sleeping, and it happened during the night at 1:30 in the morning. There was a strike. What else can I say? Doors were blown out. You can see it for yourself. The door fell on a bed over there. My wife was injured. She has concussion and is at the hospital now.
In Mykolaiv, 5 people were killed in a Russian drone strike, with 5 more wounded.
A fire broke out on the 4th floor and a man living there died. My neighbor. He was killed. Later, they carried his body out, and another fire broke out on the 3rd floor. It destroyed the corner of the building.
At the same time, at least 35 settlements in the region of Sumy were shelled, while in Kryvyi, a Russian missile struck a 5-story apartment building, injuring at least 11, including 2 children. Firefighters are searching for people who might still be trapped under the rubble. To follow the latest news from Ukraine, subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a comment down below. Russian forces suffered the highest single-day losses since the start of the full-scale invasion. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces, Moscow lost 1,770 personnel on November 10th. The reported total for Russian casualties now stands at 710,660. This includes those killed, wounded, missing, or captured. The new figure surpasses the previous daily record of 1,740 set on May 13th. At the same time, British Chief of the Defence Staff Anthony Radakin stated in an interview with the BBC that Russia is paying an extraordinary price for Putin's illegal invasion.
So October was the worst casualty figures for Russia so far. On average, over 1,500 people either killed or wounded every single day.
Every day?
Every single day. And that is for tiny increments of land. The longer the war goes on, for Russia, the more difficult it is. Russian economy is under pressure.
Meanwhile, the New York Times, citing American and Ukrainian officials, reported that Moscow has assembled 50,000 troops, including North Korean soldiers, in the Kursk region in preparation for a new offensive. American sources report that Russian commanders are training DPRK troops in artillery operations, basic infantry tactics, and trench-clearing maneuvers. Ukrainian sources indicate that the same forces have been divided into assault and support units ready to play active roles in potential combat operations. However, US and Ukrainian officials believe that despite this buildup, Russian and North Korean forces are likely to face significant losses, comparable to those seen by Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. Russian forces executed 2 Ukrainian POWs in the Kursk region. Drone footage surfaced on November 11th depicting Russian forces breaking the Geneva Conventions yet again. Previously, on November 9th, a video surfaced showing an execution of a wounded and unarmed Ukrainian combatant. The Ukrainian human rights ombudsman dr0nеs stated that he sent a letter to the United Nations and the International Committee of the Red Cross concerning the reported war crime and blatant disregard to conventional military conduct. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer arrived in Paris to join French President Emmanuel Macron for Armistice Day. According to The Telegraph, the 2 leaders are set to discuss Ukraine's authorization of Storm Shadow use on Russian soil, as well as bolstering military support for Ukraine, aiming to counter anticipated shifts in US policy under Donald Trump. Starmer is the first British leader to attend French Armistice Day since World War II, making this visit symbolic of European solidarity. His presence highlights the strong unity between the UK and France in supporting Ukraine, reported The Telegraph. The European Union is to supply Ukraine with 1.5 million artillery shells by the end of the year. This was stated by the High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, in an interview with European Pravda. He mentioned that 980,000 shells have already been handed over to Kyiv, and this number will soon reach 1 million, the amount intended to be delivered by spring 2024. Borrell explained the failure was due to underestimation of EU's military-industrial complex production capacity. The outgoing High Representative arrived in Kyiv on November 9th on his fifth and final official visit since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. During a press conference alongside Ukraine's Foreign Minister, Andriy Sybiha, he assured that support for Ukraine on the part of the EU will remain staunch and unwavering. Borrell also called for increased military aid, including investment in Ukraine's arms industry, underscoring the need to grant permission to strike Russia on its own territory, and announced an additional 15,000 Ukrainian soldiers will be trained in the EU by the end of the winter.
We extended the mandate of our training mission for Ukraine for 2 more years and increased the ambition of this training mission in order for this mission to correspond better to your needs, which I know they are huge. We have already trained 60,000 Ukrainian soldiers, and we will reach 75,000 by the end of the winter.
2 years have passed since the Ukrainian Armed Forces liberated the city of Kherson, the administrative center of the Kherson region. It was under occupation by Russian forces for nearly 9 months. The day Ukrainian defenders entered the city, local residents greeted them on Freedom Square, waving blue and yellow flags, which had to be concealed during the occupation.
It was very scary. First of all, every time you see them, you don't know what they have in mind. They could just shoot you in the face, take you somewhere.
However, when the Russian forces entered Kherson, the citizens resisted the occupation in the full knowledge it could cost them their lives. Even now, 2 years after the occupation, Kherson is under constant Russian attack. In the last 10 months alone, the region was shelled nearly 36,000 times. Russian forces have used 200,000 shells to attack the civilian population. Since the liberation from Russian troops, about 700 people have been killed, including 12 children, and 3,500 residents have been injured, 130 children among them. A chemical plant in the Russian city of Alexin, Tula region, was struck by drones in the early hours of November 9th. The attack was confirmed by the head of the Center for Countering Disinformation, Andrei Kovalenko, who mentioned that the facility is part of the Russian defense industry. According to the statement, the Alexin chemical plant has been involved in the production of ammunition, propellants, and composite materials used by Russia's military and aerospace sectors. It also manufactures components for large caliber ammunition. Deutsche Welle, citing sources, reported that this was a joint operation by the Ukrainian security services and the Special Operation Forces. That's it for today. We are United24 Media. Thank you for being with us, and see you tomorrow.